All right, guys. What's up? What's up? What's up? It is me, Crimson 60620, and I am here. Well, quite frankly, I'm here because it's Tuesday. Um, fuck. Let me get my fucking glasses. I want to actually do a video, and I don't know if I'm gonna actually be able to get to it the whole fucking video. Be right back, guys. I get it on my way when I put it on intro. Anyway, um, I am here today because I am just trying to. I don't know. I wanted to talk about some shit. Of course, I'm gonna actually be playing Conan Exiles tonight. I wanted to give Horizon Zero Dawn a break, and I know I've been giving myself a break a lot this weekend, this week or so. Shit. Um, Damn. Shit. I'm sorry, guys. I'm fucking tired. 10-hour work days would actually do that to you. And don't worry, tomorrow I have tomorrow off, and I'm looking to try to fix some shit. But anyway. We're gonna be covering a debate that Professor Wolf has actually had not too long ago at the Soho Forum debate, which is basically a bunch of libertarian um, thinkers. But it's gonna be fucking interesting, and I'm gonna actually go into the intro, grab my glasses, which are really just yellow light glasses or blue light glasses, and I'll see you in coming back. You can support me at patreon.com/Crimson60620 PS4 Gaming. And you can also follow me at Facebook, Crimson60620 PS4 Gaming. Thanks for your support and enjoy the video. All right, guys. All right. So, um, let me just put that right there. Rearrange some stuff. All right, cool. That actually should work perfectly. I should be able to see your chats without looking too far to my fucking left, and I should be able to just respond to the video. So I've already watched this video, and this is the thing. This is not a cold watch. I watched it, and I find it like Professor Wolf were making points referring back to this debate, and you'll see why I fucking love the fucking debate. And let's see. Let's bring the video up. Yeah. There we go. Yay, Conan. And let's get the little bit of a mysterious thing out the way. We can actually see the mic. I think I like this, the way I have the mic now. I think I like the way I have my setup now. I don't know if you guys can. Let me turn my mic up just a little bit. Got the gain up just a little bit more. And so let's talk about this, shall we?
Employees. Capitalism, private property, is necessary, although not sufficient, to a free and open society.
Let's go back.
Capitalism is unstable.
Capitalism is unequal, and capitalism is fundamentally undemocratic.
I want people to make their own choices about how they live their lives, the professions they lead, where they want to work, and what they do. And capitalism offers that potential.
Slavery did it with masters and slaves. Feudalism did it with lords and serfs. Capitalism does it with employers and employees.
Capitalism, private property, is necessary, although not sufficient, to a free and open society.
All right, so
Please.
we can just go straight there, right there. That little bit alone actually just shows you, just in the refutation, like these are obvious clips from other later on in the debate, but there's no refutation that capitalism is a bad fucking system. Well, let's go.
Please come up to the stage, debaters, two young men in the prime of their lives. Richard Wolff, who will be defending the proposition, socialism is preferable to capitalism as an economic system that promotes freedom, equality, and prosperity. Gene Epstein will be taking the negative on that. Each candidate, the way this will work is that each debater will have 17 and a half minutes. In that last 30 seconds, when it comes, you'll understand why it's there. But each of them will have 17 minutes and 30 seconds to lay out an initial case. They'll do 5 minutes each of rebuttal. I'm going to beat them up a little bit with a moderator's prerogative on some questions. Then we're going to open it up to 30 minutes or more of audience Q&A. 5 minutes each of closing statements, 7.5. And again, those 30 seconds. You know, this is where the world changes in those 30 seconds. And then we will take another vote, and we'll see who is the big winner.
Okay, so he's setting down the rules of what the debate would actually be, which is actually, it's still not really a debate. It's more of a one-sided discussion based on what the two people actually speak about. Because as we know, in a real debate, you actually come out with the premise, and of course, both sides exchange notes, and then you actually do the rebuttals before you come up with your points, point, status quo. And I had debate class when I was in my last year of high school. You come out with your debate points, and you actually present your evidence to your other side, and then you go into your presentation, you go into the rebuttals, and then you go into the final push, your final statements, and then the audience decides. That's what a real debate is. Not like the shit that we really have here on fucking YouTube or Twitch, where people's like, oh no, I'm debating him. No, you're talking at somebody. You're not actually trying to win the conversation. You're trying to just have a fucking conversation, and it's not really a fucking debate. So let's have this conversation.
Jane, could you please, and if you haven't voted yet, you've got about 5 seconds to go. Please make a vote. Either vote for the proposition, against it, or undecided. You need to vote now in order to vote later. And without further ado, let's have Richard Wolff come up and explain to us why socialism is preferable to capitalism as an economic system that promotes freedom, equality, and prosperity. Richard Wolff, you have the stage.
Okay, so this sounds... So at least they're doing the actual, hey, you have to vote now in order to see if evidence has been proven to actually see if your mind changed. But this is actually a libertarian form, and I'm gonna let Professor Wolff get into it, but we're gonna have this. We're gonna let them have that conversation.
Thank you all for coming. I assume that socialism is the reason that you came, either for it or against it. and I hope that the things I have to
Fuck
say
you, elephant.
will make some sense of it for you. I did want to comment on the notion that Reason Magazine is free and that the Understanding Marxism book costs money. And I want to urge you not to infer from the price what the values of these things are. That would be a mistake. It would be confusing the price with the value, and for the
Funny joke. Like, if I haven't gotten it, probably should. If you saw my video on my Facebook, Crimson60620 PS4 Gaming, you can actually see that they're actually using an employee co-op to print books now, and that's actually awesome, based off of the last economic update that was produced on YouTube on Monday, I believe. Yeah, it was Monday because it was yesterday. Sorry, guys. Working 10-hour days. It helps you. It fucking confuses you because you're tired like 2 days worth of fucking work. But anyway, I think I'm gonna actually go and purchase that book because it's a few things that I want to purchase. If you ever heard of the book called Propaganda, that's also a pretty interesting book that I want to take the time to purchase. But let's let them say it. Let's let them go.
those of you that know something about socialist theory, that's something you want to avoid. Okay. Socialism preferable to capitalism. My basic argument is that's a very low bar. That's not asking much. And I want to make that case as strongly as I know how. But I have a problem in the very beginning, as I always.
So, I mean, like, when we think of is socialism better than capitalism, what are we comparing it to? Feudalism? Quite literally, the system of slavery, which was actually a blend, in my working theory, is a blend of feudalism / capitalism, where, yes, some people were free, but you still had property of somebody who was de facto a regent or a king or lord of their particular area. So, yeah, you still had that blend, and because it was all legal and shit, a lot of people just were slaves because they made the shit legal. Just like feudalism was quote unquote legal and right until it wasn't. But let's continue.
Always do, traveling around this country, talking about this. And that is, we are like bears in this country, coming out of a hibernation, about 70 years of it. Since 1945, when everything changed, from a society in which socialists, communists, Marxists occupied all the normal positions in society as teachers and workers and bureaucrats and unionists, when we had a New Deal that celebrated many of the objectives socialists have always supported. Across the United States had a big picture over the wall, the clerk's office where you bought stamps. And there was Uncle Sam with his hat, arm in arm with Uncle Joe, which stood for Joseph Stalin.
Not Uncle Joe, the racist ex-president, vice president, excuse me, who thinks you should help kids by playing fucking records when they're asleep. Yeah. Not that Uncle Joe. But let's go.
After that, there was, not so surprisingly, a terrible reaction. The business community and the right wing in America was horrified that for the 1930s, we had had a program of raising taxes on corporations and the rich in order to fund the creation, for the first time in American history, of Social Security, unemployment compensation, the first minimum wage, and a public employment project that hired 15 million people. The rich had to pay, and the mass of the Americans got the benefits. This was so horrific, it freaked out the forerunners of the Koch brothers. And then an alliance with the Soviet Union finished off whoever wasn't freaked out already. And so in 1945, everything had to be undone. The New Deal coalition, for those of you who remember your history, socialists, communists, the CIO unions representing tens of millions of American workers, they're the ones that made all that happen. They're the ones that made Roosevelt do all those things. And they had...
So, this is just a brief history lesson of exactly what happened and why we saw a lot of change and what happened directly after Roosevelt passed, basically. So, it was effectively... Roosevelt got a lot of things passed. And, excuse me. And the way he did it was... Look, people had no fucking money, and the government basically couldn't actually collect taxes because there was no taxes to get. Nobody had a job. And so he went to the business community, and they funded a lot of the shit that we will call social welfare programs. And that saved the fucking country. And not only that did that save the country, but that also made where people got out of the depression. Two of y'all motherfuckers. Fuck. I'm getting frostbite because of these motherfuckers. Anyway, and so the business community was pissed. They were fucking pissed because Roosevelt did this shit. And they wanted to keep their money like Golem in the ring. And so, they went to kind of stop the New Deal. And they rolled back. It took them a motherfucking while for them to roll back. But that's why you had the McCarthy hearings and demonizing socialists and demonizing fucking, things like unions and, like, for real, when you think about it, they pulled the biggest con, and one of the big tricks to that con was getting the Supreme Court to allow money in fucking politics. Damn it, I have no more. Okay. I need to fucking heat up right now. Alright, but let's continue.
To be defeated, and they were. And the way you break up a coalition is you find the weakest link, or what you can make out to be the weakest link, and suddenly communists and socialists who had been the militants making the 1930s the greatest unionization period in American history. We never had anything like it before. We've never had anything like it since. Communists had to be transformed, and likewise socialists. From the great allies in the war, from the great vanguard of social programs in the 30s, they became agents of a foreign power likely to be interested in strangling your cat.
Huh.
And they had to be driven out of the unions, the 1947 Taft-Hartley, driven out of their teaching jobs, driven out of the consciousness of the American people, who were terrorized about being interested in those things, as they have mostly been in the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years. A personal note. When I went to college as a young person, I was interested in learning about Marxism, and I asked my teachers in the university, what course can I take to learn about Marxism? Half my teachers explained to me there isn't any, nobody here knows anything about it. The other half said, oh, yeah, we know about it, but we're way too scared. We're not going to teach you anything about it.
So let's just listen to that. Some of the people that actually would have, like, you see just from just what's going on in the history lesson is that you see that in order to make sure that the profits that these corporations and these rich motherfuckers were actually trying to keep, you actually see that they did a lot of damage to people's reputation. They did a lot of damage to what would be beneficial for everybody just to keep fucking profits. And oh, that's a fucking, I thought it was Star Metal up there. I thought it was Star Metal up there, gents, ladies and gents. But that's what they were doing. They were doing this shit for profits. Not because they was pissed. Like, if you see the same thing happening right now where you get billionaires and millionaires talking about, well, I will give, but you can't force me to give And it's like, you fucking selfish ass motherfuckers. Why would you do something like, why would you say that? Because you sound as if greed and money is all you care about. That's why I don't understand libertarians, because you get this shit where you don't want anybody to tell you what to do, but you'll be okay with a corporation telling you what to do? Come on, but let's continue.
In my undergraduate and my graduate years, and I majored in economics, I'm an economics professor, here's a fact. No one ever in any economics course assigned me one word of Karl Marx. Is that because he had nothing to teach us? Don't be silly. They were just afraid. 75 years of fear. There's nothing smart and nothing excusable in any of that. Oh, and let me mention, since it might be of some interest to you, the three schools I attended were Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. And if they don't have the courage, what can you expect from Eastern Kentucky?
So, and this is a good point. You have these institutes of higher learning, these institutes where, you know, they're quote-unquote liberal schools, but yet and still, all that they're doing and all that they're supporting is just the status quo, because partially because they're probably too afraid. Nobody wanted to be on the McCarthy, in front of McCarthy when he was holding the red trials. Nobody wanted that shit. And they publicized that shit. The fucking idiot in chief right now thinks that he had a witch hunt. Motherfucking McCarthy knew how to throw a motherfucking witch hunt. Hats on buckles and all. But let's continue.
So I have a problem to talk to you about socialism, because unless you're a very unusual American, and there are some, or a foreigner, because the situation's different abroad, you don't know much about socialism, or what you do know is 75 years out of date, because it's changed a lot, as I'm going to point out to you as I go through the argument. Okay, let's do it. Socialists disagree. They always have, from the beginning. Socialism is a product of capitalism. It always was. There was no socialism before capitalism came into being. Why? Because capitalism in the French and American revolutions made a big fat promise when it asked people to leave the feudalism that existed before and shift over to capitalism. It made the promise, as in the French Revolution, that capitalism would bring with it liberty, equality, fraternity, and let's add democracy and prosperity.
So that's actually an interesting point. Was it more progressive than what you will see with feudalism? Fuck yes. Capitalism is more progressive than what you saw with feudalism. It definitely was. did it bring the opportunity for people to have a little bit more fraternity than what they would have had with feudalism? Because you weren't bound to a king, you can make more choices or different choices based on, I don't know, more than just where you were born at and who your clan and family was. Yeah, but did it facilitate on more freedom? Of course, if you had more money, of course it did, but not for everybody. But let's continue.
Socialism is the movement that recognizes that what capitalism promised, liberty, equality, fraternity, and democracy, wasn't delivered and never was. And the socialism is a movement which, if it has anything in common among its different tendencies, is a notion that we can do better than capitalism. It's a yearning to do better. It's the kind of yearning slaves had to go beyond slavery, or serfs to go beyond feudalism. Employees and the people who empathize with them figure we can go better and do better than capitalism.
So here's the thing, and I'm going to actually say this, and a lot of people actually get it wrong. It isn't that I'm sorry, guys. Something popped up on my feed, and I just had to look at it. It isn't that socialism is. It isn't that socialism is a looks to completely replace what you see out of capitalism. It is that socialism is actually a balance to what capitalism offers, because capitalism as a principle is always going to run to try to get more and more. It's going to look for infinite growth. It's going to look for a growth potential that doesn't have any limits, doesn't have any stops on it. And when you can't actually organically grow something, you tend to motherfucker try to oppress people to try to get a better motherfucking results. And those repressions can only go so far before people start to come with the fucking pitchforks. But let's continue.
That's what socialism is. Beyond that, socialists agree about three flaws, failures of capitalism. And again, briefly, to go through them. But there are three. Capitalism is unstable. Capitalism is unequal. And capitalism is fundamentally undemocratic. Let me briefly explain. Unstable. Every 4 to 7 years in every capitalist country, on average, there's an economic downturn, not due to nature and not due to war, just built into the system. It's called the business cycle because it always comes back.
Okay, the way he's talking, like, for real, if you haven't saw the movie Accepted with Lewis Black, this is how this motherfucker sounds. And it's not meant to sound like a fucking parody, even though it is. But, oh, God. If you actually look at Lewis Black's comedy versus Professor Wolf's, the way he talks, you would understand what the fuck I mean. And this is why, I think this is one of the reasons why I find him as entertaining as he is. Because, dude, it's just like, motherfuckers, do y'all get that y'all fucking over everybody? We're trying to keep this horrible ass system. But that's just me. That's just, it's just the way I see it. It's just the way I hear him. And it's just like one of those things with me. But let's get to the substantive point. Wow. Okay. So, yes, the fucking business cycle you actually see it. Boom and bust. That's why the motherfucking Trump is so motherfucking worried right now. Because it's time for another bust. It is time for another bust. And the motherfucker is worried that bus is gonna come while he was trying to. The bus is gonna come. I'm sorry. Again, 14-year-old boy. He's worried that the bus is gonna come while he's trying to win re-election. It's either that or that somebody's gonna bust his whole political chances open because he's too stupid to understand that you don't fucking pressure another motherfucking foreign nation in order to win your fucking re-election. But he's stupid. But let's continue.
Millions of people lose work. Businesses go out of business. A crazy crash. You know what it's like. If you pick up the financial press, you'll know we're waiting for the next one to hit this year or next. Mr. Trump's biggest worry about being reelected is that it'll happen too soon. He worries, as we all do. It's an unstable system. That's crazy to live in an unstable system. If you lived with a roommate as unstable as capitalism, you would have moved out long ago. What an amazing thing to accept a system that every 4 to 7 years threatens millions of people with unemployment, lost income, interrupted vacation, interrupted education, lost mortgage, you name it. Then let's do the next one, inequality.
Okay, so, yeah. Dude, I know people that can't stand a friend who can't be decisive about the decision they made every other 2 weeks. Literally, there's jokes going around about how people can't stay in relationships for longer than fucking 6 months. Or people said they want to have years of stability with people. And the sad part about it is a lot of motherfuckers would be okay with capitalism because, well, that's just the system that we grew up in. And they have actually formulated into their calculations a boom and bust because it's so motherfucking predictable. What the fuck is that? Really, what the fuck is that? Okay, that's what I'm at. Okay. Why do you put up with that shit? But let's continue. Let's get on to equality. This should be fun.
Oxfam in England keeps track of these things. And the latest number from them summarizes it all. The 80 or 90 richest people in the United States together, in the world, have more wealth than the bottom half of the population, 3.5 billion people. That's the achievement of capitalism, that kind of distribution. If you took away half the wealth of those 80 to 100 people, guess what? They'd still be the richest people in the world, only you'd now have a vast amount of money to deal with the sickness, the lack of education, the absence of water, the insufficiency of food of the vast majority of people. What an achievement, such inequality.
So, and this is a key part about it. You hear a lot of people talking about, oh, you just want to tax the rich out of existence. No. People don't. Here's the thing. If you took, like he said, some of the richest people and took half their wealth away, which at points becomes just absurd, the amount of money people that wealthy have, because you're so worried about somebody being the rich actually being persecuted because they're successful. No, what ends up happening in those situations is this: you can you can take half their wealth and spend it on, programs for the poor, programs for the needy, and these motherfuckers will still actually have some of. Please don't tell me that I'm gonna be pissed because. Oh, I'm gonna be pissed. Oh shit, I made the jump. I made the jump. They still would have most of the wealth that they still have right now. Did I bring my bedroll? Uh. Oh shit. They still have this. They will still have a lot of wealth that they do right now. They. It's like with $100 billion. What are you gonna do with all that wealth? What the fuck are you gonna do with all that wealth? You can't do anything with all that wealth because you can't spend it in 3 lifetimes, 4, 5, 6, 100 lifetimes because it is just so much fucking money. And if you said that you can, no sane person can spend that much wealth in their lifetime or even in their children's lifetime. And yeah, I said no sane person. But let's continue.
And now finally, the lack of democracy. The part of it you probably know and thought about is the buying of our political process. On display every day, everywhere. You all see it, you all know it. But here's a part of the lack of democracy you might not have thought about. Long ago, we got rid of kings, queens. We decided we didn't need somebody sitting at the top of society telling us all what to do so that we would all be, let's call it subjects. That's what they called us. So we got rid of the kings and queens and we said, no, we can run this in a different way, this political system. We can all get together, we can periodically vote and take steps and collectively make the decisions that used to be in the hands of the kings and the queens. How interesting. We democratized, at least a little, the politics. Well, what we didn't do was to democratize the economics. So what do we have inside each enterprise? A little king, an owner.
Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Okay, where's my thrall? Okay. Come here, thrall. Ah, shit. Um. Oh, shit. Shit. There we go. There we go. We got that motherfucking heat down. Yes. Whew, got that heat down. Then that's what I wanted to do. Yes. Damn it, I don't have any ice. What the fuck is right here? Obsidian? What? And raw ash. Quit playing with me. Alright, so let's give this thrall some obsidian. Well, I even got some gold out of it. I'm hot. Shit. Where's that shield? That should cool me down just a little bit. In this fucking volcano. Sorry guys, I'm trying to get my bearings. I know where I'm at now. Alright, cool. I can actually run myself down this way. I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to get the fuck out of here. Alright, but let's go.
A manager, a board of directors, a king and his court, who run everything, who make all the key decisions, what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits everybody in the enterprise helps to produce. If it's too difficult for you to hear me out, then it's a sign that I'm getting to you.
Thanks. We're good. Please keep going.
Please hear out Professor Wolf.
Okay, this is what I mean by it's a libertarian think tank about what's going on, and that's why you had these people actually speak the way that they did. But hold on, guys. Just trying to put my shit back on because I'm fucking cold. Frostbite is setting the fuck in. Whew. And I'm thirsty. Frostbite is setting in and I'm thirsty. Fuck. Fuck me. Okay. Come in. I need your shoes. I kind of love the fact that thralls don't get cold like this. It's fucking awesome. That should actually be cool. Okay, yay. The fuck? But yeah, this is what I mean by this is a libertarian forum. Shit, come on. Ooh, that should be better. Oh, that's a lot fucking better. Yeah, I almost died there. Going into the volcano. Almost died. But let's continue.
Please respect Professor Wolf.
We don't have democracy in our workplaces. We never did. The commitment to democracy is verbal in this society, limited to that voting activity where we live, but not where we work. And as adults, that's where we spend most of our time, going to work, being at work, and recuperating from work.
So this is a good thing. This is a good point to actually make because you actually see it. You see it all the time. People spend, I know personally, I spend fucking 10 hours at work. spend 10 fucking hours at work. Literally clocked in for 10 hours. You know, except for, when I'm late, 9.965. But it takes me it takes me 30 minutes to get back and forth to work. So 30 minutes, not alone just the 10 hours I spend at work, that's an extra hour that I spend fucking at work, and my travel time is just my expense for wanting to have a fucking way of providing for myself. But shit, let's continue. And Lord knows what they do to shit like this, like YouTube. Fuck. I'm not even monetized, and I don't even know if I would ever be monetized with all the fucking changes that they're about to do. The fuck? But yeah, because capitalism, fuck out of here.
In the workplace, no democracy at all. We do what we're told. What we produce belongs to somebody else, and we have no say over what they do with it, how this is organized, what the technology is. And socialists, therefore, have said, my God, we can do better than capitalism, and that's what they want. And that's what they agree on. But here's where the disagreements. How do you go about it? What do you do? And we have a benefit, socialists do today. We have some experiments that were made in the 20th century. Russia, China, Cuba, and so on. And we learned from those experiments what works and what doesn't, what should be pursued and what should be set aside. And so the new socialism, and if you're not aware of it, that has to go back to what I said at the beginning. You haven't been keeping up, which is hard to do in a society which makes socialism a taboo. What has happened to socialism...
So I want to actually also make another point. A lot of people, because of their, incessant need to fucking survive, they don't have a lot of time to research some of these points. They don't have a lot of time to say, spend time to actually learn some of the points that you will see from different economic systems. That's one of the things that you saw from, Ford, and what made Henry Ford just a little bit better, even though he had all that anti-Semitism. What he recognized is if you pay your employees and also, give them more time off, they ended up spending money in order to make you more money. And it's like capitalists forgot that lesson. They forgot that if people have more time to spend to fucking... If people have more time to spend to, one, not have to worry about resting so much, or two, they had more time to spend not having to worry about, surviving and the daily grind of life, they can probably spend more money buying your products. They can probably spend more time shopping and watching your channels or watching your programming if they didn't have to try to rest and recuperate so much from being their bodies and souls being crushed, working a 9 to 5, or in some cases a 7 to 6. If people had more money to fucking spend, maybe they would actually spend more money. But let's continue.
Is a refocusing of itself. It's not interested so much in the state doing things that achieved rapid rates of economic growth, true enough, but it also left too much power in the hands of too few people, and that has to be addressed and dealt with, which socialists have been doing. And the new focus of socialism is to do something at the workplace that was never done, to go beyond capitalism in the organization of the workplace, to democratize the workplace, to make where we spend most of our adult lives at work a place where democracy reigns, where all the people who work in an enterprise participate in making the decisions of what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits.
So this is one of the things that always, like, I had to come to this realization myself. Do you know collective bargaining is a right wing? It's basically a right wing version of employee-employer relations. Like, literally, you have no fucking, you don't have any fucking power in collective bargaining except to bargain collectively. Versus, I don't know, employees being 50% of the board, or just the left-wing version, which is really worker-owned co-ops. But people think that unions are some sort of left-wing kind of resolution to, well, maybe your boss can't be that mad at you type bullshit. When in reality, when you look at unions in reality don't have much power, even during their heyday. It was merely employees getting together to say, you can't really you can't really crush us like you really want. That's what unions were. So, yeah, that shit, like, I guess you don't get dropped on that. That shit just, I don't know. Just, maybe I'm overthinking it, but that unions don't seem like they're the weakest form of employees sticking up together to me. But let's continue.
Because if they all together made those decisions, we wouldn't give some people $150 billion and other people have to borrow money to get their kid through college. We wouldn't have the inequality. We certainly wouldn't allow the irrationality of every 4 to 7 year instability. Everybody together would choose a technology that isn't dangerous to the health of all of us at the workplace. We could go beyond capitalism, but we have to have the courage to do what was not yet done, not in Roosevelt's New Deal and not in Russia or China either. The transformation at the base of society into a democratized workplace. That's the new direction of socialism. That's where socialism will be in the 21st century that we are now entering.
So, I remember having this discussion with somebody at my job, and I did have a critique of, you know, people who are extremely wealthy having so much, and it's like, well, if you had that money, you would act the same way. That's a trick question. I wouldn't want that much money. What do you need $150 billion for? Never mind, that was made off the backs of fucking basically slave labor for employees. Remember those stories that Amazon workers used to have to deal with because not being able to go to even stepping away for the bathroom, they had to piss in bottles until, you know, Senator Sanders actually put pressure on not just Amazon, but motherfucking Disney to say, pay your motherfucking workers more. And by the way, this is a Senator Sanders after he had already lost the primaries in 2016. A year and a half after losing the primaries, he came back, was like, hey, I may have lost the primaries, but these people are waking up, and, you know, they act as if he can't make the same. The media act as if he can't make a statement in 2020. Yeah, you can be quiet all you want to, but that motherfucker has a base. But let's continue.
It's a new and a different socialism. It has learned from...
What's up, wow, I do not know how to pronounce your name, but thank you for watching. If you want to follow me on Twitch, hit that follow button. Thank you.
its own earlier experiences, and experiments. Two little footnotes. Capitalism did not emerge out of feudalism, all finished in one swell foop, did it? If you know the history, you'll know that capitalism started in this town, in that village, in that area. Often it didn't last more than a few weeks or a few months, sometimes a few years, and then it was crushed by feudalism. And they had to figure out how to survive, and they had to get together. It took centuries. Socialism isn't born all at once either. It makes its early experiments. It had one in the Paris Commune in 1870, and then it had some other experiments in the 20th century that I've mentioned. And just like with capitalism, you learn from your experiments how to make it better next time, how to correct the mistakes you made in the project that has animated socialists from the beginning. We can do better than capitalism, and there is no reason that the human progress that took us beyond ancient villages and tribes and slavery and feudalism should imagine itself to have stopped at this point. Every other system.
All right, so this is my one hang up with going to a completely stateless society. My one hang up is because we have been to a place where it was effectively city-states. You get little towns where it would be hard for them to come together to defend. And my only fear, and this is why I would never can actually understand a full anarcho society, is because there will be strongmen. And like, one of the people that I actually admire from history, even though I know he did brutal shit, was Genghis Khan. And the reason why I admire somebody like him, or even to another extent Attila the Hun, is because they were victims, and yes, they passed their victimhood to other people, but in the end, it was a sign of, when you don't have a somewhat strong, centralized collection of people, then you actually run into people that are looking to make noise or grow their own power, wealth, prestige, and they look to crush other people. And that's just me. Then that's something, admittedly, that I will say that's the one reason why I am leery on a stateless society. It would have to be globally, which a lot of people are advocating for, and it would have to be a stronger ties of agreements of defense. And the only way I see that happen is actually a state. But I could be wrong on that. So let's continue.
Was born, evolved, and died. Capitalism, we know, was born and evolved. I'll leave it to your inference as to what it is doing now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard Wolff. Follow him on Twitter at Richard D. Wolff with 2 F's. And now, taking the opposite side, is Gene Epstein. Follow him at Gene Soho Forum. Gene Epstein.
All right, so we're going to go over with Professor Wolff. Professor Wolff actually gave us just a history of what happened with capitalism, how it grew, how it changed, and how it can be improved. Gave some of the biggest downfalls of this system. Also, said that it is better than feudalism, which it is. I will not sit back and say capitalism isn't better than feudalism. It is. And quite frankly, no one wants to go back to feudalism. No one. No one wants that. Fuck. All I see is elephants and fucking tigers. Oh my. And I still can't find fucking Star Metal. But let's continue. God damn. Sorry, guy. But yeah. God damn it. But no one wants to go back to feudalism. No one does. No one wants to. Also, no one wants to live in a world where it's so much inequality and instability. No one wants to live in a world where it's, in order for one person to be so wealthy, thousands of people have to live in abject poverty. No one wants to live under a fucking king. Why is it okay for you to want to live free with your billions of dollars, but me to be crushed by debt or crushed by the need to work 10 fucking hours a day? And yeah, I keep ringing that whole fucking 10 hours a day because people die to work 7 hours to 8 hour days, 5 days a week. People die for that shit. And for corporations to dangle that in your face in order to make a motherfucking dollar, yeah, that kind of rubs me the wrong fucking way. Not in a good way, which I'm gonna probably rub myself in a good way after we stream. But that's a different story. Anyway, I'm an asshole. God damn. Come on. But yeah, no one wants to live in that situation. And let's hear the refutation that capitalism is a great system and none of these things are real. Let's continue.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
By the way, there are seats up front for people who are in the back, and I want to apologize to Professor Wolf for that outburst. That was very rude. We don't run the Soho Forum that way. And thank you, for Professor Wolf, for being gracious about that. Well, let me start. It is a pleasure to share a stage with Richard Wolff, who I consider my alter ego in a parallel universe. We both came of age as socialists. In my case, from age 1, since my mother was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, and I have her FBI file to prove it. You could always tell who the FBI...
All right, so yeah, this shit isn't addressing the consent of the point to say capitalism is a great system. I'm making a joke about being a capitalist and being a socialist. Okay. And yeah, I'm being harsh because I fucking listened to this shit before. But I'm also being harsh because he's trying to obfuscate the actual point of the premise. Is socialism a better system or not? But let's continue.
FBI agents were in the party because they were the only ones who paid their dues on time. Richard paid his dues by getting an economics PhD at Yale, followed by a career advocating socialism.
So this is kind of some irritating shit because it actually paints socialists as some lazy bums who don't want to spend money, and it paints them as people who want to live off of everybody else, and the only real true people that were in the Socialist Party were people who wanted to tear down the party because of reasons. But let's continue.
I paid my dues by evolving into a different kind of radical, a bleeding heart, freedom-loving advocate of capitalism. I believe that even the deeply flawed capitalism we have now, heavily distorted by government interference on behalf of the powerful, is preferable by far to...
So here's the thing. One, this is the shit that always pisses me the fuck off. Because people think that capitalism is a system of just pure unbridled freedom. No, the fuck it's not. It is a system that relies on the oppression of the many to make sure that the needs of the very few, very, very few, are taken care of. And in that system of repression, you actually see that people are fucking hurting, and the only thing they can say is, you need to work harder. And it's like, do y'all really understand what problems that y'all are creating because of this system? And capitalism does not equal freedom. Economic debt is still it still bounds people. Things that you have to pay for, your living expenses still bound people to different shit. They gonna kick my ass. Okay. Economic debt is still a chain, a noose around so many people's neck that, yes, one person that has $100 billion still, when you have so many people that have to live in abject poverty, it's not equal, it's not freedom. In socialists, nothing in socialists actually says you can't be free. As a matter of fact, the only thing that it says is that certain companies can't run amok. But let's continue.
to Richard's socialism in promoting freedom, prosperity, and equality. Richard bears a very heavy burden of proof because his socialism has never existed. He repudiates my mother's Soviet Union, my mother's favorite Cuba. He has indeed called these systems state capitalist. I'm glad he's learned from their mistakes, since their mistakes has in fact, of course, cost the blood of tens of millions of innocent people. He wants the economy, as he explains in his book, Democracy at Work, A Cure for Capitalism. He wants the economy reorganized around workers' self-directed enterprises.
So they're recognizing like this old trick of a lot of the damn it, how do I put it? The old trick of a lot of the cheerleaders for capitalism, I guess you can call them, where they used to say that no, everything in socialism is great. You're starting to see those tricks actually go away. You're actually starting to see that they're starting to say, "Whoa, this is still good," and you're like, no, the fuck it's not. It's bad. It's fucking bad. It's fucking awful. It's fucking bad. It's fucking awful. And for you to actually sit back and say that no, it's great, shows that you're just being dishonest. But let's continue.
In which employees own and democratically run companies.
Hey, what's
and
up,
keep
21
broadly defined
sketches?
Profits or surplus that normally go to the employers. I fully support what Richard calls employees becoming their own employers. so long as people
Shit.
freely choose that arrangement. Richard thinks such firms are a substitute for capitalism, but they're actually just another option that capitalism offers. Nothing about the system of protecting property rights of firms in a free market dictates how these firms must be structured. Richard himself has written about the, quote, varying kinds and degrees of democracy in the workplace which already exist. Based on these cases, he observes, quote, workplace democracy responds to deep needs and desires, unquote. But these deep needs and desires seem to run only skin deep. Richard has written that in today's work.
So this is what I don't get. People speak of worker-owned co-ops as if workers can unite and say, "Oh no, we want to just, start a business or buy a business from our employers." Where, if you actually look at what's happened, a lot of people no longer have the capability of starting their own business. In a lot of cases, you need $35,000 to $50,000 in order to start a business, and most of the times, most of those businesses don't make past 2 years. Why? Is because people have magically forgotten how to start business and actually keep those businesses going? No, there has been a systematic turn to destroy small businesses. And people are okay with it. And you know what? The people who even failed at small businesses are starting to say, well, I guess I didn't work hard enough. You spent 60 hours a week of your days working to make sure your business was actually off the ground. But you didn't work hard enough? And that's the trick that you see with a lot of the systems that's already built into what's going on with capitalism. These people have worked their asses off. People have blood, sweat, and tears. And you know what? That's the reason why I like Corbyn's plan. Corbyn's plan, and I think Bernie Sanders is trying to do something similar to it, where if there is an issue where you're trying to sell your company, oh, this should be fun. Because that motherfucker is right there. Let's kill these wolves. If you're trying to sell your company, the first people that have an opportunity to buy your company, if you're taking an IPO, the first choice in buying the company would actually be the employees. And if they don't have the money in order to facilitate them purchasing it, Corbyn is actually having a plan where he is offering to loan those employees the money. So that's going to actually be interesting. That's definitely going to be interesting. But I just woke up a sleeping fucking giant, and let's see how this shit goes. Oh shit, run away. Let me just keep my guy healthy. Let me see if I can get a pokey poke on the back of him, and let's listen to this shit.
Worker-owned enterprises, quote, it might be legally possible for worker owners to transform the enterprise so that they become not only owners, but also collectively directors. However, he concedes, that has very rarely happened. Well, no doubt it
shit,
very
his
rarely
ass is
happens
about to die.
because workers very rarely want it to happen. But the move
Oh,
to
shit, I was
workers'
about to die.
self-directed enterprises can happen in the capitalist system if workers do want it to happen.
So this is some shit that we heard from a lot of other people. We heard it when Destiny actually had his conversation where, oh, workers are too stupid or they just don't have the will to actually become owners. That it's their fault. They don't want to actually be owners. They're too lazy. They're too dumb. It's a problem with them versus what the real problem is. The real problem, if you actually see, is people just don't have the capital. And, like, really, I'm tired of that argument that people just don't want to work hard for it because, reasons. But they're required to work hard for other people, but they don't want to work hard for themselves. But let's continue.
Start with the fact that the bottom half of the population accounts for 1/3 of all consumer spending. The bottom 4/5 for nearly 2/3, adding up to trillions of dollars per year. On the investment side, there's over $1 trillion in labor union pension funds domestically and an estimated 40 trillion worldwide.
So listen to what he's actually saying. And this is actually one of those key things. Poor people, if they actually wanted to do something better, they would stop spending money on the shit that they need to fucking survive and actually try to buy the company that they're part of. And not only that, well, you can take the money that you have invested in your 401ks and pension and actually start a real business from there. But only because reasons. Because again, small businesses always work the fuck out. And that's the thing that actually gets me. It's like, that people can't actually pay for shit. There is a need of people to actually get paid more. But yet and still, you're trying to praise this whole, well, you can pick yourself up by the bootstraps, which is a fucking logical fallacies. You're going to take yourself and you're going to lift yourself up with your bootstraps and actually just pop yourself up. That's what that thing is. You're going to lift yourself up by your bootstraps so much that you're just going to fly. That's what the fallacy of that phrase actually means. And I'm so sorry that a lot of people don't really fucking understand that whole stupid ass phrase. Well, let's continue.
Held by labor union pension funds. All this financial firepower could be marshaled to make workers self-directed enterprises.
So, 21, I will say this. Anytime you actually have the CIA, which has fucked with a lot of people's country in order to facilitate their power, and those same kind of tactics are being used, I have a fucking issue. Now, I haven't studied what's going on in Bolivia or Chile besides the pretty much the new media information about it. But don't get me wrong. Anytime you have a Roosevelt type character, and that's what the president of Bolivia was. And immediately somebody who comes in and actually prays over the over the president's mansion, yeah, and all of a sudden says it's okay to actually have foreign oil, then yeah, you got an issue. And with Chile, it was a let them eat cake moment. And I will say that. Because when they were talking about raising the public transportation and they told them, well, why don't you just leave earlier for work? It was a let them eat cake moment. And the president who said the stupid shit learned his motherfucking lesson. Because anytime you tell people, especially people that work for a living, fuck you, this is what we're gonna do in order to motherfucking make our profit or make our corporate overlords feel better, you piss off the wrong people. Look at Macron when they had the what was that, the G8 summit, and you had the issue with the Paris riots. Yeah, this is the shit that happens. But I didn't know anything else more about that. Oh, fuck! But let's continue.
Enterprises the dominant mode of production. And it would be true to the 1960s view that radical change must be implemented by the same people who seek to be the embodiment of that radical change. But the unwillingness of workers to follow the Marxist playbook is as old as Marxism itself. Around 1980, democratic socialists like Michael Harrington and Tom Hayden advocated a bottom-up socialism similar to Richard's. But they acknowledged that without the coercive power of government, worker-owned enterprises, quote, are almost impossible to get off the ground, as two of them wrote. Richard might argue that it's okay.
So, okay, cool, great. You're bringing up points. And if you want to say that, yeah, without power such as the state actually forcing capitalists to actually address some of the problems that you see under capitalism, cool, I will give you that shit. I will give you that shit, wrap it up for you, and call it like, yeah, call you Mary. But the thing about it is, too, when you say that shit, you have to be willing to actually admit that capitalists have an outsized source of power when it comes to dealing with people. And a lot of capitalists, a lot of people who preach the gospel of capitalism don't want to say that capitalists have an uncontestable single amount of power. And so, yes, should the state come in and take over industries? No. But should the state actually be on the side of workers? That's why we need to get money out of politics. But let's continue.
Okay to use government power to try to jumpstart workers' self-directed firms, since government often rigs the game anyway. But a Marxist like
rigs the game in favor of who right now? And that's the thing. A lot of these libertarian ideas, they won't actually admit that the government has been rigging the game in the favor of fucking capitalists for the longest time since they were able to buy the fucking government. But let's continue.
Richard should be deeply troubled by the old contradiction of radical change from below being implemented by the force of government from above. And beyond that, he would use government to socialize finance and the allocation of labor. That's why he and I are taking opposite sides in this debate. He advocates a full-blown form of socialism that will put freedom, prosperity, and equality under siege, just like the old socialism.
I'm sorry, I don't get that particular part of it, because what it's actually saying, what a lot of people are actually advocating for, is that, you know, corporations can't run laissez-faire over the rest of us. And I'm sorry, I don't see that. I don't see where that is a issue, unless you want to run laissez-faire over the rest of us. Like you see with a lot of fucking corporations. Yes, they want to fucking run laissez-faire over the rest of us. And that's a fucking problem. But let's continue. Oh, he killed them.
Socialisms did. But let's go all the way with Richard and assume that a socialist political party wins at the ballot box with 2/3 of the electorate voting for its candidates. Since two-thirds is normally interpreted in politics as a mandate, the government makes Richard's socialism a reality. But voting for a radical idea in a voting booth is very different from a full and active commitment to that idea. So let's not assume that the two-thirds have anticipated the real consequences of what they voted for. Richard writes that apart from doing our assigned jobs, workers would each be, quote, democratically and collectively given fully equal participation in decision-making over their own enterprise and over the broad economy, unquote. He adds, somewhat ominously,
No, he
quote,
died?
no one could work without engaging in both roles. There will be a need for financing under Richard's socialism, both to create new worker-owned companies and to provide funds for enterprises that want to expand. The, quote, obvious alternative, writes Richard, to the existing sources of finance is, quote, socialized banking, consisting of, quote, self-directed enterprises where workers and communities affected by bank policies together direct and operate banks.
Okay, so this is one of the things that I really don't get about the whole situation, about what so many people are worried about workers socializing to different groups or different fucking. Okay, where's the thrall's body at? This is what I don't get is they say workers, if they had the choice to actually make things better, they would effectively make choices based on things that they find that they want. Is that what they're saying? That workers would, make selfish choices? That goes to reason that a lot of the choices that are being made by people that's in power now make selfish choices because reasons. And it's okay for them to make that selfish choice. But as soon as a worker makes that choice, then it's a fucking problem. But let's continue.
So Richard would shut down the nearly $50 billion raised annually through crowdfunding and the several hundred billion raised through various forms of venture capital. And finance is not the only function he would relegate to the power of politics. He also proposed...
So, and this is what I don't get. We shouldn't have to do so many fucking things in order to... There shouldn't have to be crowdfunding in order for people to actually pay medical bills. It shouldn't have to be... Let me see if I'm in a safe place. I'm in a relatively safe place. There shouldn't have to be... Okay, I was killed. Let me see. My thrall and pets. Okay, so she probably returned home. Anyway. It shouldn't have to be where there's so much crowdfunding in order to, people to have to pay medical bills. That shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be a crowdfund because people need to fucking purchase, life-saving drugs or have to actually, it shouldn't have to be crowdfunding for an investment for things that would motherfucking help. Oh, cool. Circle of Swords. Here we chose those who cannot be trusted. One need not fear betrayal at the meeting of the Circle of Swords. For no sorcery can be used in an ancient ring. It was old before history began, but who built it and why? I cannot answer. I'm kind of pissed. I like lost my shit. Anyway, almost. But yeah, crowdfunding should not have to be a thing. It shouldn't. And yeah, you'll get people that abuse a system, but really, is that what we're really actually doing right now? Worrying about the small amount of people when there's so many people in need? It's almost as if people that do ridiculous shit to be crowdfunding, they may actually have a bigger need that they're trying to address, but maybe going around it the wrong way. But let's continue.
Is a, quote, specialized agency that would, quote, always know from constant monitoring which existing enterprises need more laborers, which have registered the wish to commence new production, all the relevant skill and experience requirements, and where affected laborers and enterprises are located, unquote.
Yeah, we already have that. It's called the Department of fucking Labor. I'm sorry, guys. It's the Department of Labor. That's what that is. That's what that is. We already have that right now. He knows we have it right. He knows we have it right. He knows we have it right now. It's called the fucking Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor actually... Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Wrong way. Wrong fucking way. Oh, shit. I'm about to get my ass kicked. I'm running the wrong way. Sorry about that, guys. Mistakes have been made. Yeah. Mistakes have been made. But we have the Department of Labor. That's what the Department of Labor does. It actually keeps track of what skills people need. It keeps track of business needs and shit like that. We have that right now. That isn't something that's new. Quite frankly, it's something that, does everything that he's mentioning right now. But let's continue.
He adds that the agency's reports would be submitted to all workers to aid them in making their decisions. Notice that he's talking about knowledge of the relevant skill and experience of 160 million workers in the U.S. across hundreds of thousands of firms. That's information the specialized agency will, quote, always know from constant monitoring. From
the U.S. Department of Labor. This is a system that we already have in place. But let's continue.
My work experience, I can tell Richard that those constant monitors who keep coming around will be the butt of jokes, and the information they come away with will be superficial when it isn't totally misleading. So in Richard's world, we'll be required to do our assigned jobs, attend meetings about company matters, and vote on the outcomes. We'll also have to pore over the reports of the labor allocation financial agencies and then discuss their recommendations with many others and vote on those outcomes.
So this is the shit that I never get about these people that says, well, you're going to be having to spend so many times in meetings and you're going to have to find all this information. Information is already there, but let's let him finish his point.
Admit that only in a dystopian nightmare could most of us imagine ourselves spending our waking hours in this way, especially since the vote of any one of us, can hardly determine the outcome anyway. Richard approvingly uses the 1960s term participatory democracy, in which we each get to participate actively in democratic decision-making. In a 1970 book called After the Revolution, sociologist Robert Dahl explained the arithmetical unworkability of this idea. If each attendee at a meeting were given just 10 minutes to address the issue being voted on, it would take 10 hours to move on to the next issue, provided there were only 60 people at the meeting.
So, listen to what he said. He's actually trying to make a point that you can't afford the time to have everybody vote on shit because reasons. Nothing more than just because reasons. Because if everybody votes on things, then it may take too much time. And if it takes too much time, then, you can't get work done. You're not productive. It's almost the saying, because you work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you won't have time to do anything else. Where it's a simple way of fixing that problem. How about, and this is, I know, a radical idea, we work people less and pay people more. That's a radical fucking idea. So, that 8 hours of work that they used to spend and only get paid a certain amount, why don't we pay them more so they can also work less? I know, radical idea. Some people may have time for a meeting of workplace democracy. What? No. But let's continue.
Let's take this leap and assume the participatory democracy would be functional. Many firms seeking to expand their operations will have to borrow funds from the democratically run financial agencies while also applying to the democratically run labor allocation agency for more workers. And these democratically run agencies will be ruled by the vote of the majority. But to pick up on
So, the vote of the majority, when people are actually given a choice and actually realistically told that what somebody else does doesn't fucking affect you. If somebody else gets something, it doesn't actually take away from you. You think people won't start making decisions a little bit more based on, I don't know, shit that would be beneficial for everyone and not just a few? But let's continue. I'm only going to do a few more minutes of this, and then we're going to end it for the night.
objection raised by Atlantic Magazine journalist Connor Friedersdorf, we might ask, how easy will it be to get the democratically run finance and labor allocation agencies to support the expansion plans of firms that produce Muslim prayer rugs and Korans and the building of new mosques? Friedersdorf goes on to ask, would you prefer a socialist society in which birth control is available if and only if a majority of workers exercising their democratic control assents? Or would you prefer a society in which private businesses can produce birth control in part because individuals possess economic rights as producers and consumers, the preferences of a majority of people around them be damned?
So here's a false dichotomy. The false dichotomy is this. Well, if you leave it up to the masses, then what will end up happening is the majority would oppress the minority. Where right now you have so many people who are in a very few minority are suppressing the majority. Like, there's no way of getting around that, guys. You actually have so many people that have outsized wealth oppressing the majority of people. But that's okay for you. Let's continue.
Unquote. Friedersdorf's question applies to the related issue of freedom of speech and press. Would you prefer a socialist society in which dissenting journalism is available if and only if a majority of workers exercising their democratic control agrees? Or would you prefer a society in which private enterprises can produce dissenting journalism, the preferences of a majority of people around them be damned? So at best, our freedoms would be circumscribed by the tyranny of the majority. But we don't have to press this decisive objection, since the overwhelming likelihood is that elected representatives and their appointees will have most of the real power. There won't be enough hours in the day for us to even be aware of the thousands of decisions being made each day on our behalf. Special interests will form around these centers of power, and as Friedrich Hayek accurately predicted about conventional socialism, the worst will get on top, because power-hungry people are mainly the ones who end up on top.
So this is actually telling, because that's like saying we have millionaires and billionaires out on top right now, and somebody else worse is going to replace them to try to get on top of the power structure. That's not really an allocation that capitalism isn't better. That's just saying, let's go back to state-run capitalism, where effectively that's what you had in the Soviet Union, which, again, Richard Wolff has thoroughly denounced. But let's continue.
Our most beloved living ex-president, Barack Obama, was called by New York Times.
That's a small bar. Like, quite literally, that's a... If he's only the most beloved living president because people just hate fucking Jimmy Carter for no fucking reason. Even though, he never had a war during his time of office. He never actually... Well, technically, he never actually started warfare during his time in office. And he's still 90 fucking 6 years old, building fucking houses for Habitats for Humanity, and he still fucking tries. He still tells people, "Hey, we need to do better." But yeah. Jimmy Carter, right? Jimmy Carter, right? But let's go.
Journalist James Risen, quote, "the greatest enemy of press freedom in a generation," unquote. As left-wing journalist Glenn Greenwald has pointed out, Obama used the archaic 1917 Espionage Act to prosecute more journalists, including James Risen, than all previous presidents combined. So freedom of speech and press is a fragile thing, constantly being assaulted on all sides, and especially by government. If you magnify the reach and power of government under Richard's plan, politicians in power can stifle dissent by stealthily denying funds and labor to enterprises that put out information that government doesn't want published. Now take the issue of prosperity. Take the force that brings prosperity, innovation, or what economist Joseph Schumpeter called creative destruction.
Innovation is not synonymous with capitalism. And I'll be glad when people actually realize that. Innovation is, let's just face it, a product of a need. That's all innovation is. It is saying something is needed, so how do we fucking fix it? Some people innovated without the system of capitalism. It happens, guys. It fucking happens. Some people innovated, by wanting to help French nobles be separated from their fucking head. That was fucking innovation right there. But, hold on, guys. I'm sorry, guys. I was my daughter had to, and I'm about to wrap this up. It's actually getting pretty late here, and I've been talking for what, an hour and a half. But let's continue.
Richard thinks that as long as people can be offered another job, they'll agree to giving up their current job to allow creative destruction to happen. But since people naturally resist change, efforts at major or even minor change would likely be thwarted by special interests reluctant to give up their established positions.
That sounds a whole bunch like I like capitalism because I don't like change. That's what that sounds like. And I'm surprised he doesn't understand the irony of what he's actually saying. Like, oh, no, we're not going to change. We're not going to change. We're not going to change because change bad. But you're saying that you like innovation. Yeah, innovation good. Change bad. But do you hear... Do you hear what you're saying? No, both sides of my neck. Both sides of my neck. But let's continue. And he has, it was 17 and a half minutes, so that's 35 minutes, plus the preamble of like a minute or so. So we're almost finished for the night. Let's continue.
Imagine the response if Steve Jobs sought funding for a smartphone that would also replace a flashlight, a watch, a camera, a compass, a calculator, a recorder, CD player, and GPS navigator.
TCIP, funded by the fucking government. Touchscreens, funded by the fucking government. GPS, funded by the fucking government. Steve Jobs just branded the shit. That's it. That's what he did. He branded the shit. The shit was funded by the Department of Defense because they wanted to kill people. Innovation. How do we communicate to other people? Because we want to kill them quicker. Innovation. The fuck out of here. The fuck? Let's continue.
Threatening the industries that turn out those products. The pattern of obstruction will be emboldened by the knowledge that most new ideas fail and few succeed in a big way anyway. Policies toward imports could make Donald Trump look like a free trader. When consumers voted with their dollars to buy Japanese cars because the cars were better made and lasted longer, there was a market in place that made it hard to stop the imports. But in a politicized environment, the threatened industries would find it easy to prevent the foreigners from selling us the cars. The planners will have a perfect excuse for each.
So, I don't know if the irony is this strong with this man, but it's already a system. Like, capitalism actually does this shit now. I am not hitting a refutation of the fact that capitalism is better than socialism. I'm not hearing that. And yes, maybe it's because I'm biased as shit, but at least Professor Wolf was actually saying this is where we have a difference of a fucking opinion. But I'm not hearing this shit with this man. It's like, let me throw out the saying Pratt. Points refuted 1,000 times versus capitalism versus socialism. But let's continue.
Rejecting any projects or proposals they don't like. The economic reality of scarcity. By scarcity, I mean the fact that what everybody wants always adds up to more than there is. So they can reject proposals they don't like on the reasonable ground.
There is false scarcity. Let's just put that shit out there. There is false scarcity. Now, we live on a finite planet with finite resources, but the idea that there is scarcity with money, with any of these constructed ideas is fucking false. If we wanted to, right now, we have the opportunity of feeding everyone on the motherfucking planet. We can do that shit right now. It would be no problem, and we can do this shit for people right now. There's a false scarcity that is going on with so much shit. It is. But let's continue.
That the resources are simply not available. So freedom and prosperity would both be under siege in Richard's system of socialism. On inequality, as Noam Chomsky has pointed out, you can find income equality in a prison where power is quite unequal. And political power will be more unequal than even under our flawed system of capitalism.
Did he just throw out that, well, for all of us to be equal, it has to be akin to a prison? Yeah, sure, dog. Sure. But yet and still, you still have a situation where, yes, fucking security is the currency in a fucking prison. That's what the currency in a prison is. And you still have an outsized source of fucking power in the hands of a few, and they have their goons to enforce this power. But let's continue. We're almost over, guys.
The flawed system we have is preferable by far to what Richard proposes in terms of freedom, prosperity, and equality. Because we have so many avenues of private funding, dissident publications like The Intercept, Jacobin Magazine, Reason Magazine, books like by Richard Wolff, and a debate series like the Soho Forum can persist. Because we have private funding and reasonably functioning consumer and capital markets, innovation that brings prosperity.
He just skipped past the reasonably functioning. He knows capitalism is fucked up. And that's the thing. That's what is the shit that kind of pisses me off to no avail. They know capitalism is fucking faltering. They know that there are structural issues that are fucking happening. And look. I know with everything that I'm saying, I may seem like a raging communist. But I assure you, I am somebody who I have two minds about things when it comes to government policies. I'm more social democrat, meaning that I feel that we should have a democracy, but it should be geared more towards society and the community at large. When it comes to private corporations, I'm a fucking democratic socialist, meaning that, private corporations, we're going to run it different from the government, because private corporations, you have a choice of living under, you have a choice of living with that corporation versus living with a fucking government. In this fucking corporation, in my vision, you would have a system where you was like, no, motherfucker, you're not going to use outsourced power to prove your motherfucking point. But let's let him finish. I'm interrupted, and I'm trying to be finished before 10 o'clock my time. So let's continue.
Can persist and even flourish. And on income inequality, the turn toward capitalism in countries like China and India has lifted hundreds of millions out of grinding poverty and has therefore meant a narrowing of income inequality globally. But I began...
Okay, so I'm trying to finish. So here's the thing, and I'm probably finished with the game tonight. So the reason why China and India and all these Eastern Asian, South Asian countries are growing, because capitalism had hit a natural wall inside of the Western companies, because the workers' costs, that they actually started eating into that profit. So they started to go to places where it wasn't as much cost to actually have those workers. And they still started making the same shit, even cheaper shit, to build up that profit model. Build up that profit margin, excuse me. And it is showing. But what is happening in a lot of cases is companies first, and this is, you can follow it inside what happened with the U.S. Companies first, they were in the north. Then they moved to the south with horrible regulations, and that's the part that a lot of the story doesn't tell you about. They moved from the north where they were fucking regulated, then they moved to the south where they didn't have that much regulations, then they moved it to Mexico, and then they shipped the shit out halfway across the world in order to say, hey, we in search of that profit motive. But the problem is, and even with cultures where subservience to the state, subservience to a hierarchy was actually ingrained in them, when they start getting more economic freedom, they started to say, fucking no, we won't live under this grinding oppression that is fucking capitalism. But let's continue. Oh, wrong button.
And by saying this is a flawed system, riddled with crony capitalism. Richard mentioned the instability of the U.S. economy. Indeed, it is unstable. I read Richard's analysis, and as far as I can understand, he believes that the Great Recession was triggered by the fact that the consumer was tapped out. The consumers could no longer afford what they were buying. Well, if he looks at the data, he'll find that just before the Great Recession happened, consumer spending continued to rise. That was in the fourth quarter of 2007.
So the problem with the 2008 crash wasn't that it was consumer spending that was out the roof. It was company and consumer debt. That's what happened. So many people that had started living on credit cards in order to make ends meet. They were spending in order to cover the loss of real rise of wages in the fucking country. Everybody knows that. Everybody who's looked at that data, let me correct myself, can actually see, starting in the early 1970s, consumer productivity has gone up, but wages have remained flatlined and in some cases dropped down. Right now, the real wage that you have in England has actually fucking dropped. Because corporations are looking at profit and productivity while workers are getting shafted. Let's continue.
What he ignores was the crony capitalist policy of government through the Federal Reserve that brought that awful event. So I'm Gene Epstein, and I'm here to recruit you. Yes, we have a flawed capitalism, but in order to make it a better capitalism, we have to do a lot of radical things, including reining in the power of the Federal Reserve that does indeed cause a banking cartel and brings instability in this economy. Maybe we can talk more about those things later on. Thank you very much.
All right, so I'm going to cut off for here today right now, guys. But I just want to go over some points that he said, and I'm going to wrap it up. One, just the point about the Federal Reserve. What is a fucking problem to me is that these libertarians don't want any fucking breaks. They want to just say, well, if it's going to fail, it's going to fail. Fuck to be damned whoever was hurt on it. I just want the government out of my hair. And these are the same people that he just complained about crony capitalism. The nature of capitalism is to crush your opponents. It's social Darwinism at its finest. And granted, these are from the people that argue that social Darwinism is fucking awful. But they promote fucking capitalism. And as we know, capitalism now is really corporatism because, the Oedipus complex. And we've had that motherfucking conversation. But anyway, guys, speaking of capitalism and promotion of a brand, I want to thank everybody who's watched. If you can, take the time to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, follow button on Twitch. Turn on those notifications. And I promise that I will try to be a little bit more consistent on getting the schedule. I'm going to be here on Tuesdays and Thursdays on my Twitch channel. Also simul streaming to YouTube when I just want to actually on games like this. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you'll actually see me on my Crimson 60620 PS4 Facebook, PS4 Gaming Facebook page, which the links is down in the description on the YouTube. And Saturday and Sunday depends on how I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm gonna do a stream. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Please share the video. Leave any questions or comments, or just email me at crimson60620 and we can have a discussion. I am always looking for people to have a discussion, argument on the internet. If you have any other concerns or questions, guys, just hit me up. And thank you for watching. Peace.